welcome you to the Eagles pregame show here on Philly Sports brought to you by SeatGeek. Biggest test of the year today for the Eagles. The 9-2 Eagles look to win their eighth straight game. They look for today against the 8-4 Baltimore Ravens. A huge test today. We'll see how the Eagles fare. We're going to preview all of it right here on the pregame show. Ben Goldstein joined by Sam Heine, who is rocking some Kelly Green today, and a new Saquon poster in the back. Sam, how are we feeling today?
Feeling good. I mean, it's the biggest test so far this season, so it's super exciting. A lot of people are saying that this could be potentially a Super Bowl preview, and I definitely feel that way. So, I mean, anytime you get a game like this, it's not very often that we get to play the Ravens, and especially the Ravens down there in Baltimore. Two of the best teams in the NFL, and I'm super excited to see how they match up today.
Yeah, you see a lot of Eagles-Ravens in the preseason, but not as often in the regular season, as this is an AFC North year. We've played the Bengals and the Browns already. This is the third of the fourth AFC North team we'll play, and then the Steelers will come into Philadelphia later this season. That'll be another big game for the Eagles as well. All right, 9-2 Eagles, 8-4 Ravens. These are two of the top teams in the NFL. Eagles are second in the NFC after the Lions got their Thanksgiving Day win. The Ravens are right up there in the AFC. Are these the two of the most talented teams in the NFL facing off? Are they the best two teams in the NFL facing off? Is this a Super Bowl preview? Should this game mean more, as a preview to look what both of these teams can do in the future than standings-wise, essentially? How big is this game?
Yeah, it's definitely a really big game. I think, just because of the way the Ravens have always been in that kind of mix of the best team in the NFL since Lamar Jackson really took off with his first MVP season. The Ravens are always up there as kind of a test for a bunch of the other teams in the NFL. But I think the Ravens are getting tested just as much as we are today with going against us, the Eagles. Obviously we have two less losses than they do. They haven't had their bye yet. So sitting at 8-4, they've had some bad losses in there while we are on that 7-game winning streak. I do think that these are two of the best teams in the NFL, and definitely two teams that could be a Super Bowl preview. I think Buffalo has the best chance to come out of the AFC if I were to say that right now. And I think, after seeing how the Lions have played over the last few weeks, and especially on Thursday night, if we can get them in Philadelphia for an NFC Championship game, I like our chances. But, with the way the Ravens have played this year and the way that they look with their new look offense with Derrick Henry, this definitely has a chance to be something that we're looking at come February, as these two teams are coming back together to meet up for a Super Bowl. So, it's definitely a big test for both teams. Like I said, the Eagles sitting at 9-2, and even though a lot of people are picking the Ravens, and the Ravens are favorites in this game, I think that it should be looked at as this is a big test for the Ravens as well, because they've had some tough losses so far this season. They had a really good win on Monday night against the Chargers. But in terms of if they're two of the best teams in the NFL, I would definitely say of the 5 best teams in the NFL, these are 2 of them.
And you mentioned them, Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. These are the 2 best running backs in the NFL facing off today. Derrick Henry, we know what he's been able to do, but ever since he went to Baltimore, he's gotten even better, similar to Saquon Barkley. Derrick Henry, 1,325 rushing yards, 13 touchdowns, leads the NFL. And then Saquon Barkley, 1,392 rushing yards. He leads the NFL in that category with 10 touchdowns. These are the 2 best running backs in the NFL. These are 2 of the best offensive lines in the NFL. Who's going to have the edge? And whoever running back rushes better, could that be the winner today?
Yeah, I think a lot of this game is going to come down to who is better in the rushing game. I mean, like you said, these are the 2 best running backs in the NFL currently, and 2 guys that some teams didn't really want in the offseason. Tennessee obviously is not in a position where they're looking to win. They didn't want to have to pay Derrick Henry that extra contract. The Giants, again, not a team that's looking to win right now, so they didn't want to pay Saquon Barkley that contract. And 2 teams who have always been run-oriented and have running quarterbacks. They saw the need for a great running back to come into their system, and I think it's showing that running back is still an extremely valuable position in the NFL, especially if you have a great one. I mean, Derrick Henry is on pace probably to have a Hall of Fame career. I mean, especially with the year that he's putting up right now. Like you said, over 1,300 rushing yards. It's crazy because in the beginning of the season, all the talk for Offensive Player of the Year was that Derrick Henry was going to win it because he was the leading rusher in the NFL every week, and then Saquon has just kind of blown past him because the Eagles have played one less game than the Ravens so far this season, and Saquon still has more rushing yards than him. But yeah, I mean, Derrick Henry is an absolute monster. He's doing things that he's always done. There was some talk last year about if he's slowing down, and he really wanted to be a Cowboy, but the Cowboys didn't want to bring him in. They're worried that his body was breaking down a little bit and that he just wasn't going to be the same player because he's so physical and he's such a physical runner that, those hits, even for a guy who's 245 pounds, those hits do take a toll on you, but he's showing and he's proving everyone wrong that, he still is the great running back that everyone has come to know. And it'll be a major test for the Eagles this week of trying to stop him. Obviously when he gets in that second level, he's got the speed and the power to take long runs to the house or run somebody over. So it's going to be a big test for the Eagles, but it's exciting. Not very often do you get to see the two best players at their position face off head to head in a game. And we're going to see that one today.
Yeah, it always is really fun, and it's always fun watching Saquon Barkley, especially what he did Sunday night against the Rams. Started the second half with basically the first play, 70-yard touchdown. Later, iced it with a 70-yard touchdown again. 255 rushing yards, 302 yards from scrimmage. He does something amazing every week, and how many more adjectives and words can be used to describe Saquon Barkley? Because I've run out of them.
Yeah, I mean, you've almost run out of words, like you said. I mean, the fact that he's on pace right now to break the single season rushing record is just, it's something that it's a record, one of those records that a lot of people said would have never been broken. When you start getting into the 2,100 yards for a running back, and then especially the way that the league has been trending over the past few years with such pass heavy offenses. Although this year we are seeing a lot of the run-based offenses be some of the best offenses in the NFL. You look at the Ravens are the number one offense in the NFL, and then obviously the Eagles are up there as well. So it's an unbreakable record that might just get broken this year, which is just something that, like I said, we thought we'd never see. And every game, it just seems like he does something that we've never seen before in terms of from the Eagles standpoint. I mean, last week he broke the Eagles single game rushing record with 255 rushing yards. I mean, just his ability to wear defenses down and then hit that home run is unlike any player we've ever seen wearing an Eagles jersey. I mean, to have two touchdowns of over 70 yards or more, he just kind of, like you said, started that second half off with just such a bang. And then his ability to even just be that good in the fourth quarter. A lot of these running backs, with how many carries he gets, especially, they're going to break down as the game goes on, where Saquon gets stronger as the game goes on. I talked about last week how he's the top guy in the fourth quarter. We saw that again last week. I mean, he has just been everything you can want and more. And I think, aside from just being an amazing player, he's been a great leader on this team. He's someone who I think will be a captain of this team next year. The Eagles put out a lot of videos this past week of him going up to the offensive line and him telling them that we broke the rushing record, not me, we did it. And he's so appreciative of his offensive line, which is obviously great to see. So not only do the Eagles have an amazing player, but they have an amazing person back there. And he's just transformed this team into, a team last year that was struggling at the end. And in the beginning of the season, even when they weren't using him as much, that was really struggling, and he's turned them into a Super Bowl contender. And it's just a season unlike any other that we've seen in Philadelphia that he's on pace for.
It sure is. And it was around this time last year where the collapse really started to begin for the Eagles. And now you see where it is. They've won 7 straight, looking for 8 straight today in their toughest game so far, Baltimore. Here's some stats on Saquon from, just comparing how incredible he's been. Barkley has 500 scrimmage yards over the last 2 games. Joining Hall of Famers Walter Payton in 1977 and Ollie Matson from 1954 is the only players in NFL history to record 500 scrimmage yards or more over a 2-game span. He became the sixth player in NFL history to record multiple rushing touchdowns of 70-plus yards in a game. The others are Lenny Moore, who did it in 1956, John Fuqua in 1970, Barry Sanders in 1997, Frank Gore in 2009, and Maurice Jones-Drew in 2009. And finally, Barkley's 1,649 scrimmage yards are the second most by any player in his first 11 games with the team, after Eric Dickerson's 1,726 with the Rams in 1983. These numbers are insane, and they scream MVP. Scream it. But, will a running back ever win MVP over a quarterback? And you kind of are getting the battle today. Lamar Jackson last year won his second straight MVP. Saquon Barkley is doing things that an MLB is doing. But you look at Lamar's stats, 2,503 yards, 27 touchdowns, a 75.9 QB rating. He is certainly on a great track to win his second straight MVP, but Saquon's been so good, and I think a big thing with the MVP is, where would a team be without that MVP? Where would the Eagles be without Saquon Barkley is an immense question. I think Saquon is almost undoubtedly should be the MVP of the NFL. A little bit of bias in there, of course. Can he really get it over Lamar Jackson, the quarterback?
Yeah, so right now, I would give it to him over Lamar. I think the fact that Lamar has 4 losses already this season, with potentially, obviously, a few more coming down the line, I think that'll be a big factor in not giving him the award. And I also think that while you can argue it's fair or not, and I think we'll start to see this trickle into some other stars in other sports, like possibly Aaron Judge with winning all his MVPs, and Lamar, but without doing it doing MVP seasons without playoff success. One of the things that is very much talked about, especially in basketball, when you have an MVP, is that it's about the regular season. It's not a postseason award, but after a certain time, it's almost impossible to not bring in their postseason failures when you're talking about, are they really the most valuable player in the league? So I think that is also going to be something that's going to be a knock on Lamar, because he just has not had any real playoff success. Right now, if the season ended today, I would give the award to Josh Allen. I think he's been the best player in the NFL this season, especially after losing Stephon Diggs in the offseason and just doing what he's been able to do with less weapons around him. But they have some really tough teams coming up. The Lions, most notably, that they'll be playing. So if he loses a few more games, and if Saquon keeps going on this path, I think that if Saquon breaks the single-season rushing record, it's almost impossible not to give it to him. When you look back at who the last running back to win an MVP was, it was Adrian Peterson in 2012. You can look at Adrian Peterson's numbers. Unfortunately, I don't have them in front of me right now, but Saquon has, through 11 games, has passed where Adrian Peterson was at 11 games in every single category: rushing yards, yards from scrimmage, touchdowns. So I think that Saquon's obviously on pace to have an MVP season. I think if he gets to the rushing record, or just about the rushing record, and the Eagles, they finished this season 14-3, 13-4, I don't know, 13-3 or 14-3, I think would have to be the number. And he gets close to or breaks the rushing record, I think it's going to be impossible not to give it to him. But at the moment, I think it's hard to argue that Josh Allen's not the MVP, just because, like you said, if you take that player off that team, where is that team at? And while the Eagles are obviously very dependent on Saquon Barkley, they've shown in the past that they can win with other running backs. Whereas if you take Josh Allen off the Bills right now with the talent they have on offense, they're looking at a whole different team. So, I think that he deserves to be above Lamar right now. I think he deserves to be second, even though Lamar has been amazing this year. But I think that he definitely can win it and can be the first guy since Adrian Peterson to do it if he gets to those historical feats.
Yeah, we'll see. Josh Allen definitely up there with Lamar and Saquon. That's probably your top 3 right now. Adrian Peterson in 2012 at 348 carries for 2,097 yards, including 13 touchdowns in 16 games. Saquon's almost at those numbers right now.
Yeah, Saquon has 12 total touchdowns. Obviously, the rushing yards, he needs to keep going, but he's on pace to break the single-season rushing record. So he's on pace to blow those numbers out of the water, and obviously Adrian Peterson did it then. But I think, hopefully voters are okay. No matter what, I think he's going to win Offensive Player of the Year. But I think that definitely he can win the MVP if he keeps going and ends up does doing the almost unthinkable of breaking that rushing record.
Yeah, it would be certainly incredible. And well, the Eagles are going to have to be incredible today in the trenches. We've talked about how great these running backs are, how great of a runner, of course, Lamar Jackson is. Jalen Hurts also a great runner, of course, Saquon Barkley. This game is going to be won or lost for both teams in the trenches. Of course, the Eagles have such a great offensive line. The Ravens, of course, with Lamar and Derrick Henry. Will this game be won in the trenches? How will the Eagles fare at the line of scrimmage? This game's very dependent on that.
Yeah, I mean, this game is going to be won and who wins the battle of the line of scrimmage for sure. I think, one of the big things last week that was a worry for people going up against the Rams is that they have a very good defensive line with a lot of young talent. And I mean, the Eagles' offensive line just destroyed them. I mean, you see these holes that Saquon Barkley was running through. A normal running back can get 10, 15 yards out of those. And then obviously the specialness of Saquon is what makes them into 70-yard touchdowns. But the offensive line has just been absolutely amazing this year. And I even though the Ravens have a great run defense, I still feel confident in our offensive line to do a great job. But on the other side, obviously Brandon Graham now out for the season. He was having such a big role in this team, both on the field, off the field. Obviously, he's a great leader, and he'll still be able to do that from the sidelines. But he was also having a great season, and I mean, even last game, such a great game. So that's definitely going to be something that they will miss. And in terms of winning the game on the line of scrimmage, I feel very confident in our offensive line, but the defensive line's got to keep it up. They've done a great job over the last few weeks. Jalen Carter has really turned into the player that we all thought he could be right in front of our eyes. It's amazing. We saw flashes of it last year, obviously, and then he kind of slowed down as the season went on, hit that rookie wall. He's playing just about every snap on defense right now, and he is just mauling people. I mean, he was double teamed on just about 80% of his snaps last game against the Rams, and he was still getting to Matthew Stafford. I mean, the one play that kind of stands out is he was double teamed. He rips through the double team, makes Stafford step up in the pocket, and Milton Williams is right there to clean it up. Milton Williams gets the credit for that sack, but that's a Jalen Carter sack right there because he's the one who made him move into that. So those big guys up front, Jalen Carter, and this is a big Jordan Davis game. Jordan Davis, the guy that a lot of people wanted, is on the other side, and Kyle Hamilton, who's been a very good player in the secondary. But the Eagles chose Jordan Davis, and we all know that he's had his ups and downs so far as an Eagle. But if you're going to be drafted to be that elite run stuffer, today's your game. You gotta show up and you gotta show out today. But it is going to be a little worrisome with how well the Ravens obviously run the ball, and with Lamar. He's very good in the pocket. He's gotten so much better in the pocket. I think when a lot of people think about Lamar Jackson, they still think about the guy who came out of college who can run like crazy but is not very accurate. He has totally improved his passing game. His arm is very strong. He's a very good passer, especially going down the field. And then obviously, he's still an amazing runner. So the Eagles' edges are going to have to really keep contained there. They're going to try to keep him in the pocket as best as they can. And we got some guys that are going to have to step up. Jalen Hunt, Nolan Smith, Josh Sweat, who's had a really good season, but he's going to have to keep it going. But those young guys, and Nolan Smith and Jalen Hunt, are really going to have to step it up because BG was so good with coming off the edge and then setting the edge on the run. So those guys are really going to have to step it up. And I think whatever team plays better on the line of scrimmage is going to be the team that ultimately wins the game today.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned two guys I want to get into. We'll start with Jalen Carter. He was being double teamed really for the first time in his career last week against the Rams. Took a little bit to get used to it, and then got that big play where Milton Williams, he set that up for his sack. Carter's going to be, we talked about him comparing him to Fletcher Cox a little bit last week. Cox was, of course, double teamed very often throughout his career. Carter's going to now step into that double team, time. He's going to be double teamed. It's going to happen every week for maybe the rest of his career. How will he respond to that? And, positives and negatives from how he responded to it last week from you.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of positives. The Eagles released a really good video like they do every week, kind of showing some mic'd up players. And Jalen Carter, one of the things coming out of college was that he had character concerns. That's kind of why he fell. He had number one pick in the draft potential, but he fell all the way to us at number 9 because of those character concerns. And I think one thing that you see about going into a great organization like the Eagles have proved to be, is that they can kind of help out guys who have those issues. And I think the video last week showed that. Jalen Carter was being a great leader on the sidelines, going up to guys, hyping up guys on the sidelines. And I think that a lot of being double teamed is just a mentality. I think about it a lot in basketball with the different defenses that guys would run. And if they're catering the defense to you, let's just say they're playing, a zone defense that always is going to be collapsing on one guy and he's not really going to get his shots up. Is he going to still be involved in the game? Is he still going to be cutting? Is he still going to be playing hard on defense? Even though he's not getting his shots and letting the other guys take advantage of those mismatches or those one-on-one opportunities. And that's a lot of that's what great players have to do. And that's a lot of what Jalen Carter has to be able to do. And what we saw last week is he needs to still have the mentality that even though I am double teamed, I am going to dominate. And that if I am getting double teamed, that means somebody else is left one-on-one for them to go be able to dominate. And I think that he's shown so far this season that he has that right mentality of not getting frustrated with the double teams and not giving up just because you are double teamed, and realizing that it is for the greater good of the team if you are getting double teamed, because then it leaves those guys, Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat on the outside with being able to eat up. And also, we've seen Nakobe Dean come in on some blitzes right behind him. He eats up those double teams, and one of those guards who's supposed to be watching out for the blitz lets Nakobe right past him because Jalen Carter is eating those guys up. So I think he's had the right mentality with it. He needs to continue to just let it play out and not be frustrated with it. And I think he's been doing a great job of that so far this season. And he's going to be a great player. I mean, he's just really showing it. And it's really exciting because, he's living up to the hype that that a lot of people have for him coming out of the draft.
Yeah, slow start for Carter in his career, but he's certainly picking it up. Maybe we'll revisit those Fletcher Cox look backs in a few years. Anyway, you mentioned Brandon Graham. It was really weird. He went out, kind of nobody really saw him get hurt last week. They just panned the camera over it with guys huddled around him, holding his arm. You hear that he's, giving guys hugs and embracing with his teammates on the sideline. And of course, after the game, you find out he tears his tricep. Such a great win last week. Kind of just like bang, like destroyed. It's another huge loss for the Eagles in Los Angeles. Carson Wentz in 2017 with the torn ACL. Brandon Graham, torn tricep against the Rams a few years later. Kind of different scale a little bit. Carson Wentz playing an MVP level. Brandon Graham, he was having a great season though. Got a sack in that game against the Rams. Got him to 3rd all time on the Eagles sack list. And, they're going to miss the leadership and also the on-field play. 36 years old, year 15, and he was maybe the Eagles' best edge rusher. It's a huge loss, and they're really going to feel it today.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible. You got to hope that Brandon will be able to come back next year. I know before this season, he talked a lot about how this was going to be his last year, one last ride kind of thing, and he was going to leave it all out there on the field. And you have to wonder if him going out like this is going to change his mind. But if it is how he goes out, I mean, obviously he's been a great Eagle with the biggest play in Eagles history with that strip sack of Tom Brady. And obviously he's also been a great person as well. And yeah, the Eagles are going to miss him a lot. This is a position that's already thin. You have Bryce Huff, who was an offseason signing who hasn't really panned out and is also hurt right now. He's going to be out until close to the end of the season. This is an area that a lot of people, including myself, wanted the Eagles to add at the deadline, but they decided to stand pat and go with stick with their guns there. And unfortunately, that's looking like a little bit of a bad decision here. These younger guys are really going to have to step up. It's time to see what Nolan Smith has. It's time to see what Jalen Hunt has. I'm less inclined to see Jalen Hunt just because, he was a safety in college who's getting transitioned to a outside linebacker. And he wasn't really a guy who was supposed to step into a role at all this season. And the fact that he's even getting on the field before this Brandon Graham injury is a huge sign He's super athletic, but I can't really expect much out of him. But it leans on Nolan Smith and Josh Sweat now. And I think, they added some guy. They added Charles Harris. They tried to bring somebody out of retirement. I'm blanking on his name right now, but the Dolphins blocked it.
Shaq
So they
Leonard.
tried to, Shaq Leonard. The Eagles tried to bring him out of retirement, but the Dolphins owned his rights, and the Dolphins did not cut him, which kind of a bad move by the Dolphins, but whatever. And it's just I feel like that's not right for them to do. But yeah, these other guys are really gonna have to step up because still in year 15, Brandon Graham is still out there making plays, and as Eagles Nation, Eagles fans, the whole city of Philadelphia, we're all gonna miss Brandon, and hopefully it's not his last game. But if it was, at least he went out with a great game.
Year 15, age 36. It just like Brandon Graham can't end. Like I was thinking of Jason Kelce last year. He can't end his career on a game and a collapse. And him and Fletcher Cox, a game and a collapse like that. Brandon Graham can't end his career on an incomplete season, as Vic Fangio said. Like, what are the chance? Like, this can't be it for BG, right? Like, it can't be.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to go into a season knowing you're going to retire and then coming back and, now to kind of go through it all again, especially with all the rehab he's going to have to do. But, I mean, Brandon obviously still can play, so I wouldn't put it past him. I do think that if the season just ended normally, this wouldn't even be a conversation because he'd be shutting it down. But I think that thought has definitely creeped into his mind. I mean, if you listen to him on WIP this week, he definitely left it open. He was very emotional about getting injured and how he talked about a little bit about letting people down, and obviously no one feels that way. But if it is the end, it was a great career, but hopefully it's not. I think there's definitely more of a possibility now because of the way the season ended of him coming back than if he played out the whole season, though.
Yeah, I mean, you see, when Amazon Prime made that Jason Kelce documentary on the 2022 season, it was supposed to be Kelce's last year. Why else would they make a documentary on a random Jason Kelce year? Unless it was scripted and they knew he was going to play his brother in the Super Bowl. But that was supposed to be it. 22 is supposed to be the last year for Jason Kelce, but how they lose in the Super Bowl, he loses to his brother, he comes back for another year. I just like Brandon Graham has too much heart and he's too much of an eagle to me, just like for his career to end on an injury. But
I think something too is how well this team has played this year. I think if they were just kind of a middle of the pack team, like they looked like they were going to be starting out this season, that it would make the decision a lot easier. But I mean, this team's not going anywhere. I don't think Vic Fangio is going to get hired away. I don't think Kellen Moore is going to get hired away. All the talent on the defense is super young. Q, Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, Nakobe, all those guys are super young. The offense is not going anywhere. Jalen, AJ, Smitty, and Saquon, and then the offensive line, they're all locked up for years to come. So this is a team that's going to be competing for Super Bowls, year in and year out now. Obviously there's going to be years in there where it's not as good as it is right now, but for the most part, the core of this team is young and under control. So ideally they're going to be in the mix for a Super Bowl every single year. So I think with how well this year has gone, the longing to try to win another Super Bowl, if they don't get it done this year, will definitely be there for BG. So that could definitely be something that brings them back as well. Obviously, if they don't get it done this year.
Yeah, we'll see. Hopefully that's not it for Brandon Graham. But it's always good to have BG around for the Eagles, just for his character, for his leadership, and of course for his on-field play. Anyway, let's move on. Devontae Smith is inactive for the second straight week. Just came out before the game. There was not much confidence last night they were going to have him go out there today. He went out there, and the Eagles are playing it safe and keeping it keep playing with precaution with Devontae Smith. And, right play, fair play. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, it obviously sucks that Smitty's going to be out again. But the Eagles at 9-2, not a non-conference game today. You have to have the long view in mind. This is a team that expects to be playing football in February, and it's not worth it to risk Devontae Smith being out for a lot longer if they don't think he's 100% ready to go. Obviously, him warming up this week means he will probably play next week, which is obviously a great sign, kind of like we saw AJ test it out before the game, ultimately not go, and then he was back the next week. So yeah, it's obviously a tough loss not having Smitty again this week, but I'd rather them be safe than sorry at this point in the season, just because we are approaching the playoffs so soon. And the last thing you want is for a lingering hamstring issue on your probably fourth or third best offensive player.
Yeah, it's December 1st, which is crazy. It's December 1st. I mean, here in Philadelphia, it's currently 39 degrees and it feels like 29. And over in Baltimore, it's typically a little colder. So it is freezing
right on the water
here up north. So, you don't want that hamstring to tighten up any more than it already is. And I mean, next week you're playing the Carolina Panthers, then the Pittsburgh Steelers, and then you have your 3 straight against your NFC East opponents. So, next week it's the Panthers, and then the Steelers is kind of a tougher one. So you want to have your guys ready to go for that. But the Ravens, their secondary isn't the strongest. And it's the second straight week where the Eagles are facing a bad secondary. The Rams last week, the Eagles started off throwing the ball like crazy. A.J. Brown was super involved early to start, and then they kind of went away from it in that first drive. The drive kind of stalled, only got 3 points out of it. But they were going in the air a good amount, and then, of course, Saquon took over. Would you like to see the Eagles stay in the air a lot more today, or kind of like go with the same thing you've been going with? Go to Saquon, and when you need to make a play in the air, make it.
Yeah, I think you just said it right there. Ever since the bye week, there was a story out today that about what happened during the Eagles bye week to kind of help it go, this turnaround go. And, obviously a lot of it we already knew with the offensive line telling Nick that we need to run the ball more. And him and Jalen came up with a plan together of how to kind of turn this offense around. And I don't think you can go away from it now. Saquon Barkley has been the engine that has drove this team. Even though the Ravens are the number 2 run defense in the NFL, you have to keep your game plan the same. We're a running team, and we don't need to go away from that. But at the same time, we need to take advantage of their weaknesses defensively as well. Last week, I think they had a really good balance between running and passing. Obviously, the run game is always going to be a lot more than the passing game, but I think Jalen did a good job of all 4 quarters playing well. Something I talked about last week is that we needed to see a full and complete game from him. Obviously he's going to miss throws here and there. Every quarterback does, but for the most part, I think he played very well for the full game. My biggest concern, though, with this passing offense, and you kind of alluded to it, is the red zone. They got down in the red zone early in that game last week. They completely went away from the passing game, and their offense stalled. I mean, if I see one more design quarterback draw, I think I'm going to punch the TV because it never works. Every time that Jalen motions the back out to the flat or to the slot, it's a quarterback draw. If we know it's sitting at home, the defense knows it as well. It never works, so please stop doing it. But I think the reason that they go away from the pass is because early in the season, Jalen was turning the ball over in the red zone a lot. If you look against Green Bay, Dallas, he had a few more that I'm blanking on, but the red zone passing was a big issue for Jalen. So I think they're kind of nervous about that a little bit. But I would say to them, while obviously they've taken the ball out of Jalen's hands a lot, he has been a lot better at protecting the football since the beginning part of the season. So I would love to see them kind of reincorporating the pass game into the red zone. They can't just run the ball as soon as they get into the 20 every single time and expect Saquon to break off these 17, 18, 19-yard runs where he gets pushed out at the 1-yard line and then push it in every time. They need to be able to pass the ball in the red zone, and I would really love to see them do it more, trust Jalen a little bit more with that. Hey, if he turns the ball over in the red zone, it obviously sucks, but at least you started to try incorporating it again, and then you can dial it back again if he does turn it over. But if he's improved with turning the ball over, which he has this season, I would like to see them loosen the ropes a little bit in the red zone and just see if he's been better at reading the defenses, because a lot of the part with the red zone, everyone's so close together. So you have to be right on time with that throw. If you're late by even a second, that ball's getting picked off. We saw that against the Cowboys with Trayvon Diggs with that pass to Dallas. Got it was open. Jalen was late with the football. It got intercepted. But if Jalen is on time with his throws, obviously he has a good enough arm to get it in there. And I would really love to see them kind of open that up. But in terms of the passing game in general, they have to do what they did last week and just take advantage of the throws when they're there. A.J. Brown obviously had a great game last week. He was very much overshadowed by Saquon Barkley, but he had over 100 yards and a touchdown. Proof right there. Jalen threw a great ball to A.J. on that touchdown pass. And that was, I believe, their first touchdown of the day, kind of getting things going a little bit in terms of getting the red zone offense going. So they need to be less predictable in the red zone. But as a whole, we saw Jamar Chase go crazy against this Ravens defense a couple weeks ago on Thursday night. Their secondary is not very good. So while I think that they need to stick to what has been working with running the ball, you gotta hit the throws when they're there.
Yeah, we'll see if they can do that today. And I want to touch on Jalen Hurts a little bit last week. Not much talk about him, but it kind of felt like maybe he had his first complete game of the year. Maybe, kind of. It was kind of like a meh game, but also had a good game. How would you assess Jalen last week?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to assess the quarterback when a running back just rips off 270-plus yard touchdown runs that eliminates, some of the drives, which is why Jalen's stats kind of looked a little bit down. But I thought he played really well last week. I mean, you look at some of the tight window throws that he had to make to A.J. Brown on some big downs to get first downs. Like I said, that touchdown throw in the end zone, I talked about it again just a minute ago, that I think that they need to start incorporating the pass a little bit more when they get into the red zone. But I thought Jalen played really well. You saw them drive down the field really early in the game, and while they didn't convert them into touchdowns, they were at least putting points on the board early in the game, which is something that they haven't really done all season. Like I said, obviously it always helps when you get two drives quick touchdowns with Saquon. But yeah, I mean, it's what I was asking for him to do all year. And I think, myself and other people who have been, a little bit more critical than others on Jalen, just because we want to see him. I know what is in there. I've seen it. I've seen him be that elite quarterback before, and I just want to see him do that again. I think at least I have come to this, resolution that this is a running team, and Jalen just has to make the plays when they're there, and that's okay. They can win that way. They're proving that they can win that way. So I still have a little bit of worry about if a team shuts down Saquon and Jalen has to throw the ball 40 times to win in a playoff game. I am still a little bit worried about that. But until that time comes, I feel great about where this offense is going, because I've seen Jalen over the last couple of weeks make huge strides and just making the plays when they're there, and having these amazing second halves, and last week putting a full game together. So it's definitely a lot of positives that we've seen from Jalen kind of turning this season around in his limited passing attempts. And, we'll work on next year or trying to expand the passing game a little bit more. But for right now, we're winning, and that's all that matters.
It is all that matters. Jalen Hurts last week was 15 for 22, 179 yards, threw that one touchdown, had a rating of 108, was only sacked once. So, those are, I'll take those stats any day of the week.
That's something, too, that's been big. I think they've let him be a little bit more him with his legs over the last few weeks, ever since the bye. Last year and the beginning of this season, we kind of saw him just going down or running out of bounds and sliding more and all that stuff, which he's still doing a great job of in terms of avoiding hits. But he's been more aggressive with his legs. And I mean, that's what makes him so dynamic at times, extending plays and throwing the ball on the move and getting those tough first downs with his legs. And it's definitely something that he's been doing a lot better the last few weeks as well. That doesn't always show up, when you look at his passing numbers, obviously.
Moving on to the defensive side of the ball now. And, another injury for the Eagles. Darius Slay is out today with a concussion, or was it the concussion, correct?
Yeah, concussion.
I don't know why I put a hamstring, but I guess I was trying to put that for Darius for Devontae Smith. But yeah, concussion for Darius Slay. So that means it's a Quinyon show for the Eagles, and the Ravens don't have the most outstanding wide receiver core. They kind of have Zay Flowers and our old friend Nelson Aguilar. we was catching babies unlike Aguilar. So yeah, what do you? It's hard to Darius or Quinyon Mitchell is so good, so good. It just feels like he's been able to lock up he literally signed handcuffs at my local mall this weekend or during this week. Is he gonna be putting handcuffs on Zay Flowers again today? I think so. I can't doubt the guy.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what type of defense they're going to be running because Zay Flowers is very good, and the Ravens love to push the ball down the field. Flowers' biggest strength is his speed, and obviously Quinyon's got speed as well. It's going to be interesting because of the way that they've been running the defense, where they're just keeping those guys, Slay and Quinyon Mitchell, on one side of the field. It's going to be interesting to see if they move them around today, but I tend to think they won't just because it's been working out so well. And I'm a little nervous about Isaiah Rodgers, but I think he's going to be playing better than he did last week. Getting thrust into a game against Puka Nacua is extremely tough. That's not the easiest matchup. So I think having a full week to prepare, knowing you're going to be the starter, will definitely benefit him. But yeah, I mean, Zay Flowers is another big test for Quinyon Mitchell, but he's been passing him every week. You look last week, he did a really good job. Obviously, he had a few balls caught on him on garbage time, but nobody cares about that. But for the most part, he was very good. I mean, he's so good that they didn't even target him last week. They were just picking on Isaiah Rodgers all day long. They didn't even look at his side of the field. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. The Ravens are a very good passing offense. While their wide receivers don't have crazy numbers, Lamar does a great job of spreading the ball around. Zay Flowers is obviously their number one, but he'll get Bateman involved. He'll get Nelly involved. He'll get their two tight ends and Andrews and likely involved. So he does a great job of spreading the ball around. And yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they match up today. And I think our secondary is going to do a good job like they always do. If they can limit the big plays, the deep balls, which they have done all season long, then I think they're going to have some success today.
Yeah, other injury news for the Eagles. Ben Van Smeerman, the linebacker and fullback for the Eagles, is out today with a knee injury. He suffered a potentially serious knee injury 2 days ago during an offensive scout team period. So you hope, our fullback, which is fun to have a fullback, but you hope he's okay. And also Johnny Wilson is out today. I don't remember exactly what his injury is, but he is on the inactive list and out for the Eagles today. So a little banged up, the Eagles today, but hopefully they can get around it, and they're going to need great stuff, from their big dogs as they need every single week. All right, notable matchups.
Yeah, real quick on those injuries, something that's going to be interesting is seeing how they use, because Johnny Wilson and Ben Van Sumeren is two guys that they use blocking a lot for Saquon, and they've done a great job. Obviously Van Sumeren's been coming in as that fullback, and then Johnny Wilson on the outside. That big body has done a great job of blocking. So losing two blockers for Saquon is no small deal. So it'll be interesting how they try to replace that. One thing that's been really good is Grant Calcaterra. Coming in last year, he was kind of seen as a receiving tight end. We've seen that a lot this year, but his blocking has gotten a lot better. He was a key blocker on one of Saquon's big touchdowns last year. So look for them to use him a little bit more as a blocker today to kind of replace Van Sumeren.
We shall see what the Eagles do on that front. But yeah, I mean, losing anyone is it's always be a big deal. But if it's gonna hurt Saquon, I feel like it's even bigger of a problem as always.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, these guys, they've kind of been unsung. No one really knows their names, but they're out there, and I think that's one thing the Eagles do well is they find these guys and they find these good roles for them, and they've been doing a great job kind of leading the way for Saquon. So we'll see who kind of steps up today in that role.
Well, we'll see who can lead the way for either team today as we have our notable matchup segment coming up. You got a few for us today. What are our notable matchups to look out for?
Yeah, so I have two. The first one's A.J. Brown versus Nate Wiggins. He's their outside corner. First-round pick from Clemson. He was a guy that some Eagles fans were looking at in the second-roundish area or late first round even. Quinyon and Terrion Arnold and Coop were off the board. He's had a decent year. Doesn't have any picks so far this season, but the Ravens, this is more just – I put Nate Wiggins, but this is just more A.J. Brown versus the Ravens secondary. The Ravens secondary and their pass defense ranks 31st out of 32 teams in the NFL. So it absolutely stinks. And the Eagles are going to have to take advantage of that today. Obviously, like we talked about, they should not go away from running the ball with Saquon, but they also need to be able to take advantage of the mismatches through the air. And with Devontae being out again, it's going to be a big game. It should be another big game for AJ. He had a big game last week. We've seen Jamar Chase go for just about 250 against this defense a few weeks ago. I'm not saying that AJ is going to go for 250, but he needs to have another big game today. And then the Eagles linebackers versus Derrick Henry. I mean, it's a pretty obvious one, but it is one of the biggest matchups of the game. Zach Vaughn and Nakobe Dean have been absolutely fantastic this season, but one thing that worries me is if Derrick Henry gets past that front line of the Eagles, is Nakobe Dean going to be able to bring him down by himself? Nakobe Dean's on the smaller side for a linebacker, and Derrick Henry's 245 pounds. So, and he is known for putting guys in the ground. So it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a gang tackling kind of effort today. One thing that has been a lot better for the Eagles since they have brought Cooper DeJean into the lineup is their tackling. Earlier in the season, they were a very bad tackling team, and then all of a sudden Coop gets inserted in the lineup, and now everyone's out here tackling like crazy. So it's going to be a big game for those linebackers. They need to limit Derrick Henry from getting into that third level of the defense. And if they do that, I think the Eagles can have a lot of success today.
You mentioned how poor this Ravens defensive secondary is. A lot of these really good teams have one or two weaknesses. It just seems like the Eagles have zero weaknesses. Maybe now you look at their edge rushers a little bit with no Brandon Graham, but there were very little weak points on this Eagles roster. Could that be something that gets them over the top come January and February?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, if you look at a lot of these teams, there is a glaring weakness, and the only one the Eagles have is edge rusher depth. But I think the way that Jalen Carter's been playing, that kind of evens itself out a little bit. You look at these big guys up front, and it's not just Jalen Carter. Milton Williams has been a really good job. We saw Moro Ojomo even get in the backfield last week. So there's guys in the middle kind of have been evening that out. But yeah, I mean, you look at some of these teams like the Chiefs, I mean, they have problems all over the field. They still win games, but they have a lot of issues. The Bills don't really have a lot on the outside. The Lions defense has so many injuries right there. They're very vulnerable on that side of the football. And I mean, the Eagles are right up there. They're the number one ranked defense in the NFL right now, and they're right up there as one of the best offenses in the NFL right now. So, I think that they're probably the most complete team in the NFL as it stands right now. So yeah, it's definitely something to be excited about. We'll see if it proves out to be true as the season goes on. But if you're just looking right now, I think they're probably the most complete team in the NFL.
I mean, you want to talk about some bad stuff. These Chiefs wins they're starting to make me a little angry. How is that not called a false start on Friday?
Yeah, I don't know. I saw some explanation for it that didn't make a lot of sense. I mean, just seems like every week at the end of the game, they have something go their way, no matter what. You go back to not to bring up old wounds, but it starts with the Eagles Super Bowl in 2022 ended game. Obviously, that call went their way, and ever since then, it's just been a lot of things go their way at the end of the games. But I don't know. I think when they get in the playoffs and they face some of these real teams, they're going to be. You never know. Patrick Mahomes, they could turn it on, but they might be in for a little bit of a awakening in the playoffs.
Yeah, sure hope so. Something that could benefit you, like the Chiefs are getting benefited from some crappy causes. Saving $20 on SeatGeek. It is the holiday season, whether you like it or not, and you want to get some great gifts for your family and friends. Get some tickets on SeatGeek. Concerts, sports, comedy, everything is on SeatGeek. $20 off your first SeatGeek purchase with the code Philly Sports Report. All right, we move on to our SeatGeek standout stars. Sam, you got two of them for us today, and I feel like I'm going to spoil one of your Saquon Barkley, and I feel like we should check it off every week. Saquon Barkley, how can you not go Saquon Barkley?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. How can you not go Saquon Barkley? I feel like I'm getting lazy with it, but at the same time, if I'm going to pick a standout star from this team, it's got to be Saquon Barkley. Every week he comes out and he shows out. I mean, like we talked about so much, he's in the MVP race. He's as a running back, he's on pace to break the single season NFL rushing record. He's gonna shatter the Eagles season rushing record. He already broke LaShawn McCoy's single game rushing record. I mean, he is just having an absolute historic season. And this is a big game for him in terms of, MVP odds and going up against Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. And, he just, I think he's going to have another great game today. I know that the Ravens have a great rush defense, but I don't think it's going to matter. And I think Saquon's going to have another big one today because he is just the focal point of this offense. And fourth quarter, you hand him the ball, he's bound to break one. I feel like every time he breaks one, I catch myself yelling, there he goes again, because it's just once a game, he starts breaking one off. And I think he's going to have another big game today. And then my second one, I feel like is kind of an underappreciated group. But if I'm going to go Saquon Barkley every week, I got to give some love to the Eagles offensive line. I think they're going to, if Saquon Barkley has a big day against the number 2 rushing defense in the NFL, then that means the Eagles offensive line had a big day as well. I mean, you look at Landon Dickerson last week on Saquon Barkley's first touchdown run. I mean, holy moly, he is an absolute amazing player. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler already. I feel like he's one of the most underrated players on this team, as he's one of the best players on this team. If you just watch Landon Dickerson play week in, week out, if you can kind of circle 69 on there and just watch him isolated, he is an absolutely amazing player. And then these other guys. I mean, I was talking today. My girlfriend and I were listening to the Eagles radio as we were driving around, and we were just talking about, somebody brought up Jason Kelce, and I said to her, it's crazy because coming into the season, so much of the talk was the Eagles are going to miss Jason Kelce. The Eagles are going to miss Jason Kelce so much off the field, on the field. Cam Jurgens has been amazing this year. The fact that he's just been able to step in for a first ballot Hall of Famer, most likely, and the Eagles offensive line hasn't even missed a beat is just an absolute tribute to Cam Jurgens. I feel like no one's talked about it this year about how well he's playing, but for him to just step in for a first ballot Hall of Famer and for the offensive line to be the exact same and maybe even better than it was last year, and it's not all because of him. There's other guys who are playing well as well. But for him to just be able to step in and be playing as well as he is just incredible. And then you look at a guy like Mekhi Becton, who was a thrown away tackle from the Jets was drafted in the first round to be a tackle. Jets threw him to the trash can. Jeff Stoutland saw his talent and said, you're going to be a guard. And he's been absolutely amazing. And then obviously Lane and Jordan, who are amazing players as well. I feel like the Eagles offensive line hasn't gotten the love it deserves. And if Saquon is going to be a standout star today, then those guys are going to be standout stars as well.
They've been the standout stars for the past 10 years, it feels like, the Eagles offensive line. And every time Cam Jurgens does a drag block, it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he's like, look. And it's you see him go out like, oh, there it is again. There's a
they had Mekhi Becton pulling the other day. They had Mekhi Becton pulling. Obviously Cam Jurgens was Kelce's protege, so he's out there running and doing a lot of those lead blocks that Jason does. And these guys have just been absolute studs this year. And I mean, Jeff Stoutland can never leave because it feels like anyone they bring in here is going to turn into a Pro Bowler. So he's done an amazing job, and hopefully they can keep this line together for a few years because they're young. They're really young, and they're really, really good.
Could Jeff Stoutland be the first offensive lineman coach in the Hall of Fame?
I mean, the way that Kelce and Jordan Mailata and all these guys talk about him, I mean, they hype him up enough that, I mean, I don't know if he'll ever make the Hall of Fame, but he's definitely an Eagles Hall of Famer. I mean, if you just look at the line that the Eagles had when they went to the Super Bowl in 2017, the only guy that's still there is Lane. And all these guys that they have just come in and replaced them with, it's a testament to Howie Roseman because he puts such a premium on the offensive line in terms of drafting. But it's also a testament to obviously the offensive line coach with Jeff. I mean, the fact that he drafted Landon Dickerson, who's coming off a torn ACL, he's going to be a 3-time Pro Bowler and is probably on his way to his first All-Pro selection this year. Jordan Mailata has been a Pro Bowler, who was a 7th-round pick who never even played football before, and he's a Pro Bowler. Lane Johnson obviously has turned into a Hall of Fame talent. I mean, the way that he has just done a great job with these guys and just turned these guys into these Pro Bowlers and something that we can rely on every year as this offensive line is going to be great no matter who's in there is so amazing. And while he may never make the Hall of Fame, he'll be in the Eagles Hall of Fame for sure.
And we'll always be thinking about him and, just remembering the legend of Jeff Stoutland. Thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring that segment. The Gamblers RS locks of the game. You can go listen to the Gamblers RS podcast wherever you listen. or watch your podcast. The Ravens are favored in this game. Can't remember the last time the Eagles weren't favored in the game. The Ravens are -2.5. The over-under in this game is 50.5. Sam, what are you thinking today?
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen this game up to 3 points. I feel like every week I say that wherever we're looking down here, it's always a half point higher than it is where you find it. But either way, that's basically going to tell you. I feel like I say this every week, but normally with betting, the home team gets a 2.5 to 3 point bump. So that's the betting market saying that these teams are even. I think the Eagles are the better team. You know, we talked about it earlier. We think that the Eagles are, if not the most complete team in the NFL, they're one of two. The Ravens have had some tough losses this year, and that doesn't mean that they're not going to beat the Eagles today. But in my opinion, I think the Eagles are a better team. So I like the Eagles to win this game. I like the over on this game as well. It's hit the last couple games. Saquon Barkley touchdown. It's been a pretty good one for you. If you can bet Saquon Barkley, I don't even know if this is an option, but 40-plus yards for a touchdown, I would throw money on that as well. Jahan Dotson, I don't know if it's still this, but when I looked before Devontae Smith was ruled out, his catches were only 1.5. So I luckily got that as an over. I'm sure it's not 1.5 anymore, but if it still is, hammer that over because just from the standpoint of Devontae being out, he should catch at least 2 balls. But yeah, those are some of the things I'm looking at today.
Quick lookout. I just saw this online. The Eagles just posted this. You know, he may not be playing BG, but he's still the leader of this team.
Man, I can't wait to watch y'all boys out there, man. Let's go out there, man. Let's take over the game from the jump. You know, why play with them, man? We got a lot of people trying to play today. Hey, I need them young guys out there. I need everybody to play the game because we whooping their yeah. So let's go out here, man. Let's go take care of business, man. Let's go have some fun, man. Let's go do them dance that we've been practicing all week. Hey, like I say, take that seatbelt off, man. Hey, it don't matter what they do, it's what we do. They ain't seen us. So I can't wait to see y'all boys, man, go out there and take care of business. Hey, dogs on 3. 1, 2, 3. Dogs.
He may not be playing, but the guy he's incredible.
Yeah, I mean, can't you just imagine Eagles run out for the Super Bowl this year, Jalen Carter holding up the Brandon Graham jersey just like Lane Johnson did with the Jason Peters jersey? I mean, that'd be amazing. But yeah, Brandon, you hear all these young guys and Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, you know, even guys on the offensive side of the ball, Jordan Mailata talks about it all the time about how much of an influence Brandon Graham has been on them since they've come into the Eagles organization. And yeah, no matter what, he's still going to be there this year, and he's going to be right by their side. And they get an extra coach on the sidelines now.
Yeah, they sure do, and he's a pretty good one. All right, moving on to the FOCO Fit Check, but very quickly, let's throw it over. Today is the final day. The winner of the FOCO Philly Sports giveaway is being announced after the Eagles game today, which means you still have time to enter. All you need to do is go over to the Instagram, like this post right here, follow us and FOCO, and comment which one of the 4 items you would like. You get an extra entry as well if you repost. You can either win the Sixers overalls, which, you know, if you still want to rock some Sixers stuff, these overalls are very nice. A nice Eagles beanie, a Fanatic ornament, and the Flyers bracelets. You saw these last week. We marketed these on the FOCO gift guide on phillysportsports.com, which you can go check out as well. So you can win these for free if you go over on the Instagram. It's good stuff, so make sure you go enter over there. All right.
Yeah, that's a nice beanie. That's a nice beanie. Obviously, everyone can use a Philly Fanatic ornament. Who doesn't want one of those on their tree?
Of course. I saw someone, they posted online, they were like, I couldn't decide between a star or an angel on top of my tree, so I put Saquon Barkley up on the top of my tree. All right. FOCO Fit Check today. It looks like you're going like some layers. Is it cold in Florida?
Yeah, I mean, we got a little bit of a cold front coming through this morning when we were out walking the pup. It was about 48, and then we've been kind of out doing a little bit of just walking around and stuff like that. So it was a little cold today, and then we're keeping the house a little cold as well. So yeah, I mean, we got a little bit of a cold front coming through. It's almost like I'm back home.
Yeah, it's a little. I think 48 we'd be like, this is nice.
Yeah,
It's going to
unfortunately,
be really cold this week.
unfortunately, my body has adjusted. Working outside in the heat every day, my body has adjusted. I'm a wimp now, and I think 48 feels like 28. So I'm all layered up as soon as it gets under 50. That's for sure.
Yeah, tomorrow it's going to be a low of 22 here in Philadelphia. So that's going to be horrible. But what are you rocking today for the Foco Fit Check?
Yeah, so you talked about it earlier. I got the new little painting behind me for the birthday gift. We got another birthday gift on today. We got the Kelly Green Saquon Barkley jersey today, rocking it out for the first time. Obviously, Saquon, I mean, what else can you say about him so far this year? MVP matchup for Saquon, so you got to bring it out for him, and hopefully it gives us and him some good luck today.
Yeah, I'm rocking my black Jalen Hurts jersey. When I threw this on, I was like, the Eagles haven't worn the black yet.
I know.
So I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe next week against Carolina. I feel like it would be a good time for it.
Yeah, that's a boring game, though. They should have done it against Washington on Thursday night.
I don't know. Whatever.
I think they're going to – my prediction is Steelers. It's 425.
Okay.
Big game. Obviously, the Pennsylvania rivalry. I think that's when they bring them out.
That could be. And they're wearing the Kelly Greens against the Cowboys in 3 weeks, I think. Yeah.
Week 17.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. That game won't matter. It'll be the Eagles trying to get the 1 seed. Dallas is already out of it, so we'll see. All right, keys to the game today. What do you got?
Yeah, I got 3. The one I talked about in the beginning a little bit is the tackling. This team has done such a great job at tackling extremely well ever since Cooper DeJean came into the lineup, but it's going to be even more important today with Lamar and with Derrick Henry. You got to get these guys down on the first hit. You need everyone swarming to the ball, everyone swarming to the guy with the ball. So you need to be able to tackle, because if these guys start breaking tackles and getting into the second and third level of the defense, it's going to be an extremely long game. Second one I got, just stick to your game plan. It's something we talked about earlier, but just because the Ravens are a great running defense doesn't mean you need to go away from the run game. You need to be the one that is the enforcer instead of letting the Ravens kind of dictate how you run your offense. Obviously, take advantage of one of the worst secondaries in the NFL, but don't go away from the run. And then the last one is going to be to create a turnover. Lamar Jackson has been extremely impressive in terms of not turning the ball over so far this season. He only has 3 interceptions with 27 touchdown passes. I mean, that is just absolutely insane. But we all know with running quarterbacks, if they start getting, running around with the ball, they can become a little bit loose with it. And then Derrick Henry's fumbled the ball 3 times this season. He's only lost 1, but he has put the ball on the ground a little bit. The Eagles defense has done a great job of creating turnovers over the last few weeks. We saw it last week that kind of turned the game around when they got that turnover early, and then they were able to kind of pick up momentum from there. So if the Eagles can create a turnover and win the turnover battle today, I think they have a great shot at winning this game.
All right, game prediction time. Put your predictions in the chat. You are very confident with this game. I'm not feeling so good. I think it's a really close game throughout, but I think the Eagles just get edged a little bit. I think the Eagles play well, but I don't think they come out on top. I think maybe this first or second time this year, I'm picking the Eagles to lose. Ravens 28, Eagles 24.
Yeah, I mean, the Eagles can definitely lose this game. I don't think that if the Eagles lose this game, it should be panic, depending on how they look. I obviously think it would be a little bit discouraging that the first really great team that they play, they lose to. Obviously, that would not be good for everyone's Super Bowl hopes. But I do feel confident in this team in this game today. I think the Ravens have a lot of weaknesses that can be exploited specifically by this Eagles team. And at the end of the day, I've learned to trust this defense. I think that's why I feel confident today, is because of our defense. They did a great job against the Rams last week. It looked like it was going to be a long day after the first couple of drives by the Rams, but after that turnover and then the second half, I mean, they just completely dominated that game. So I think that's really the reason why I feel confident today. And I have the Eagles winning this game 31-24.
All right, we got a prediction here, 33-31 Eagles. Emily is saying go Birds. So, we got some confidence throughout, and I'm getting booed for my prediction. So, it is what it is. I'm going to speak my mind. We're going a little good cop, bad cop. I think I picked the Eagles to lose the Saints game earlier this year. and probably the Bucks game as well. We weren't feeling too good back then.
Yeah, I think we both picked the Bucks game to lose. Yeah.
Whatever. Hopefully I'm wrong today. We appreciate everyone for tuning in. Happy Thanksgiving. Belated Thanksgiving to everybody. We are thankful for everyone that watches every week. And we are also, here we go, another picture. 52-17 Eagles. Ah.
Well, hey, after last week with that one guy who predicted an Eagles blowout, we said not so fast. If anyone wants to predict an Eagles blowout, I'm gonna let them do it because hopefully they're right every week.
Yeah, that dude knew ball last week. He called that guy out. He was like, no, this is the score. And he was almost dead on, so good for him.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you to SeatGeek and Foco for sponsoring. Go enter that giveaway on Instagram. Go get your tickets on SeatGeek. Check out PhillySportsReports.com postgame. Sam will be writing the postgame recap today, and I'll have the takeaways a day later tomorrow. Follow us on all the social media. We'll be tweeting throughout the game on Philly Sports Sports on Twitter, posting clips on all the social media as well. We'll see you next week against Carolina. Go Birds!
Go Birds!